Okay, so let's talk about confidentiality, privilege, and the informed consent process. So let's distinguish between these two terms first of confidentiality, right? It is an ethical duty held by us, the counselor, and it governs our responsibility to protect information that the client shares with us. Privilege, on the other hand, is a legal protection governing whether the confidential communication can be compelled or disclosed in legal proceedings. So you'll see that they overlap, but they're not really interchangeable. Understanding these distinctions, they matter because neither protection is absolute, right? The counselor has the responsibility to maintain confidentiality. The client generally holds the privilege and determines whether it's waived or subject to state law and if there's an applicable exception, right? So confidentiality also has legal and ethical exceptions that may require or permit disclosure. And this is why counselors must understand really their ethical code. We think about ACA and the laws of the jurisdiction in which you practice. That brings me right to our informed consent. So if confidentiality has limits, clients need to know that when? Before they disclose sensitive information. Think about it like this. Can you imagine telling somebody something super personal and then they turn around and go, oh, and by the way, that's actually not something that I would keep secret. I'm going to have to tell them that. Oh, that would feel like such a betrayal. I can't even imagine that. That's why we say things before the client discloses anything personal. You want to be really careful not to promise anything like everything you tell me is just going to stay right between us. It's not exactly true, right? We have to explain what confidentiality means and all those circumstances that we might actually have to disclose. Now, the goal is not to frighten your clients and tell them every single legal scenario that could possibly exist on this planet, right? But it's really to give them enough information so that they can make an informed decision of do they want to participate in counseling and what do they want to disclose in counseling. The professional disclosure statement, it actually supports the informed consent process. Now, you hear me saying the word process, right? Because when we give our disclosure statement or when we have some of these pieces signed, that document itself is not informed consent. See, the disclosure statement puts all this information, important information, right, about the therapeutic relationship in writing. So, counselor qualifications, services, risks and benefits, fees, policies, confidentiality, what the limits are, client rights, all the practice information, right? It puts it into writing. And that signature from the client when they sign it doesn't necessarily demonstrate that the client understood it. Informed consent is better understood as this ongoing process of communication, right? Not just a form that we do during intake. It is where we know that they understand the process of what is confidential and what we might have to disclose. So it's really giving them choice and supporting their decision to participate, their decision on what they want to disclose. So, food for thought as you mull over some of the things that we're discussing. And that is think about if your client couldn't actually explain what the limits of confidentiality are back to you after you've done the informed consent process. Do you actually have informed consent? Did you obtain it? Or did you just get a signature on a document? So, knowing the difference and knowing how all of these pieces interact can be really helpful as you go through the process of obtaining informed consent.